Please don't do this. Mike, you don't have to do this.
Yeah, unfortunately I do, Walter.
Okay, so I've been seeing rumors here and there that there's going to be a black and white remake announced at the Pokemon Presents next week. And that is a truly horrifying fucking concept. Because after the Diamond and Pearl ones, I don't trust Game Freak touching my probably my favorite game ever. You'd assume after all the backlash those remakes got that they, learned their lesson. I feel like if anything, the probably imminent fucking Pokemon Legends Kyurem has like a better shot at being a good game. Because at that point they'll have 2 Legends type games under their belt. Arceus is already a pretty fun game, so all they have to do is build off of that and just give you more shit to do. Today I just want to talk about how horrified I am for whatever they're going to announce next week, and generally just what I personally am most concerned about for a black and white remake, what I will want to see from one specifically. Because basic shit like the story, the characters, the music, like that's not really much to be worried about, because I don't think Pokemon games really fail at that. At best it's mediocre, but it's like regardless of what, the story is going to be relatively the same. If they find some way to fuck that up, I'm gonna delete my channel. The music, Pokemon music, 9 times out of 10 pretty fucking good. And the characters, what, we're gonna make fucking N like secret final boss? He's actually gets us to or something like no, I don't really doubt that or anything. And especially with the gym leaders and how they have a lot more of an added focus compared to past Pokemon games, I feel like this game specifically and its sequels by association do a really good job at characterizing the main cast and giving them all something to do. So it's not just like, oh, you beat the gym leader, well, they're fucking irrelevant for the rest of the game. So I think one of the main things I'm kind of worried about is the style of the game. This is kind of a strong point for me personally, because I feel like Black and White had such a distinct style for a Pokemon game. Obviously, Diamond and Pearl kind of started the trend, but I feel like Black and White and the sequels perfected it with the 3D environment, with the, let's be honest, kind of crude looking models of like cities and buildings and caves and stuff, but with a 2D sprite and 2D characters and 2D Pokemon running amok in it. It's a really cool contrast, and with the limitations of the DS's hardware, that's the best they can manage. And the 2D models look their best here. Like the Pokemon in battle, that's probably the most expressive they ever did and ever will look for the rest of Pokemon's legacy, sad as it is to say. We all fucking know Game Freak isn't going to make stylized fucking Pokemon models. They're not going to really do much. If we're lucky, they might do something like Legends Arceus, where, the models they're definitely a bit stylized compared to Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, but I don't think they're going to make anything really unique. It's going to be the same idle animations, the same attack animations, just, maybe with like a gradient or something. Who fucking knows? I hope it's not faithful to the point where it's like BDSP. Yeah, BDS. Okay, I thought I said something else. I hope it's not faithful like BDSP to the point where it's like you have these 3D chibi models that look disgusting and that move around like really fucking sluggishly. This is very wishful thinking, but I do think it'd be pretty cool if there were 3D models, which they're gonna do regardless. I'm like 99% sure they are. They're 3D models, but they're stylized with like maybe a pixel fucking like outline or something, just to give it its own flavor. Black and White in the sequels, their style was kind of defined by the fact that you had that contrast, like I mentioned earlier, with the 2D sprites and the 3D backgrounds. And since the 3D backgrounds are definitely going to be photorealistic, I feel like maybe make the Pokemon and the characters look stylized with just, kind of a nod to that pixel era where they used to be 2D sprites, but ooh, now the 3D, ooh, that would be cool. It's not going to happen, but it's good to hope. Another thing I'm super fucking hyped about is having to wait until the end of the game to get the DS little like music thing where you can actually listen to the old tunes. My issue with that is that since you get it at the end of the game, it has no fucking purpose because the game is over. Sure, Black and White has a pretty lengthy post game, and you're still going to be running around catching Pokemon or going to the World Tournament. A lot of themes can't be revisited really. Like for example, fighting Ghetsis. You can't listen to the original DS version because that's a one-time encounter. You can listen to it on YouTube, sure, but I feel like as a remake, it should allow you to compare and contrast and just see what the original game sounded like. The tweet says it has Black and White 2 roots and an episode gray, so is Black and White 2's entire story gonna be lost media? First Triple Deluxe and now Black and White 2. And everything I even care about is under the wicked fist of revisionist history. Now, not to doubt the validity of Hidden Power podcasts, I'm sure they're great people who don't lie and are very true, but I don't know. I feel like an episode gray and episode pink getting announced before the game is even out is a bit of a stretch. This was kind of the main rumor tweet I saw that prompted me to make this, because I just wanted to get my thoughts on just the two main things I was kind of worried about, which was the style, and the second thing that we'll get into right now, which is what the fuck is happening to Black and White 2. I've mentioned the sequels here or there, but those sequels aren't just like definitive versions that can kind of be blended in with a Black and White remake. They're entirely new games set 2 years after Black and White, with a whole new cast of characters and story. So I really wonder how in the ever-loving fuck they're gonna even do this. It says it has Black and White 2 routes, and there's an episode gray and pink DLC. So gray is obviously I don't know, guys. It might be the gray Pokemon and Kyurem. I don't know. And episode pink, which is the the genie who give a fuck. I don't want to get too deep into it because then we'll be here for 3 hours and this video will never come out. So just to break it down to the bare bones, what I like most about the sequels is that they take what Black and White did and expand on them significantly. The biggest example of this would be the characters. I mean, the two rivals that you grew up with, Bianca and Sharon, they already had pretty poignant character arcs throughout the story, kind of covering chasing your dreams and realizing when they give up on one, which is hard, and it's kind of sad to think about, but it's like, it's when something's destroyed, something new could be grown from that. And I think that's a really good character arc, especially for a Pokemon game where it's, most of the Pokemon games are, in a sense, coming of age stories because, they're kids going on an adventure to grow up, mature, and learn new things. Duh. Like Sharon, for example, his ambitions were to become the champion and fucking beat your rival, which, you, player character. But, he couldn't win, and he lowered his ambitions, and in the sequels, he ended up becoming a gym leader. Still, being in that Pokemon trainer ballpark, but lowering it down a peg and realizing he's better suited for something else. And then there's Bianca, too. She wanted to be a trainer, too, but, I mean, compared to the character in Sharon, she just really wasn't cut out for it, so she became the professor's assistant in the sequels. She's still able to make a new dream and be more realistic with her goals. And I think that's just so... I don't know, that's just so real in a sense. It's a Pokemon game, so, it's not like Kafka, it's not like the best thing I've ever read in my life, but it's still especially poignant, especially for people, growing up and kind of realizing they have to give up some stuff because, it's just not working out. And yes, while I do think the sequels are heavily defined by the new routes that they added and bringing back of all the new Pokemon, that was the main selling point with the game regardless, and Kyurem Black and Kyurem White, I do think seeing these characters grow and adapt was a large point of like, oh wow, this is really fucking cool. Usually with a new Pokemon game, we move on to the next set of characters, there's new region, new Pokemon, but we're just seeing how this specific place adapts and changes, and they never done that before. It's really interesting to see. Maybe an unlockable feature that you get after beating a game once, and then on like the save file menu or whatever, you can switch to the Black and White 2 save files. Maybe what they could do is they could have some more distinct differences. As much as it would be less faithful to the original games, what they could do is they could make some more notable changes to the land and to the world, so that 2 years feels a lot more significant. When you're going to a Black and White 2 save file, it feels much more like a new experience and not a rehash where it's like, oh, this time you're starting from the west rather than the south. Isn't that impressive? No, they could easily just make it so that a few routes are blocked off than usual. There's like a car crash fucking north of Route 4. Getsus is a drunk driver and he crashed the plasma frigate on Route 20. I don't know. But just make it so that they feel different from one another, because if you go on the DS and you play the original Black and White 2 back to back, you're going to notice that, like, wow, most of this shit is pretty much the same, except like a few new areas, but it's like, who give a fuck? And finally, while it is great seeing these characters and this world adapt and change over this 2-year time skip, I do think that the new faces we see give us a pretty interesting story as well that I really don't think the Black and White remake should try to remove. With Hugh specifically, his character arc of being all about vengeance and getting his sister's skitty or purloin, whatever the fuck that thing's name is, that's stupid. Ugly ass cat. His whole story arc of learning to let go of that vengeance and move on and realize that, like, okay, I don't really forgive these guys for what they did in the past, but they feel bad about what they did. They feel remorseful and they want to atone for their sins. He has to kind of let that go and realize, okay, these people did think bad things in the past, but that doesn't mean that they can reflect upon it and change in the future. And especially that scene where he is reunited with the Purloin and it's all grown up and it doesn't remember him and it's attacking him and he's just sitting there like, fuck! Like that. That's a really good scene. And especially, oh, I forgot to even mention Getsus, the psychopath. If they omit Black and White 2, they're going to completely remove that one scene where he almost kills a child. Like, you can't have a Black and White game and there can't be child murder in it. Like, what are we doing here? Hugh and Team Plasma. Team Plasma just are really fucking vicious in this game. Like, compared to Black and White, they obviously put on a facade, which I think is really cool. I really like that over the time skip, they just kind of dropped it completely because, you know, they got exposed as war criminals, like they're terrorists. And I like the fact that, you know, in Black and White they were very passive aggressive. Like, you know, they tried to put on a front, but like you can tell their intentions are very selfish. They don't really care about freeing Pokemon. It's, oh, let's free Pokemon from you and donate them to our society. But in Black and White 2, they're just like, okay, no, dude, we're just Team Rocket 2. Give us your Pokemon, or we're gonna freeze you to death. That is cool, and you don't really get that compare and contrast if you omit the sequels. And look, I don't think Game Freak's that money hungry to the point where they release the Black and White remakes, and then they'll release Black and White 2 remakes a few years later. I don't think they do that because then they would just be fucking Satan incarnate. Like, that's actual biblical levels of greed. It's a horrifying thought to think about, but I highly doubt they would. And has terrestrialization, nobody want that shit in my Unova. No. That Black and White has enough fucking features to fill a fucking stampede of starving horses. I don't think it needs terrestrialization. I get that they're trying to set up this like Scarlet and Violet connectivity, so it's like, oh, the 2 Gen 9 games, they're syncing and intermingling. No. Just keep that as a Scarlet and Violet thing. That's a whole different ballpark because that's an open world game. Kind of. Okay, I think that's it.